Hi there, I'm Jay, fellow motorcycle enthusiast and rider. I thought I'd do a quick video on, common reasons why your motorcycle won't start or your starter's not engaging. Assuming that you don't have a big gaping hole in the front of your engine or anything catastrophic like that, it's probably one of the more common, simpler things that, a lot of people run into, just like yourself. With that said, if you have a very current motorcycle, this is the year 2024 now, so, and you have a ECU on your BMW, something like that, your ECU determines that it only cranks over 5 times or 6 times, or that if your battery's too low, it won't crank at all. So, if you have a situation like that, it could be a problem with your low battery. But on more common budget bikes, more simple motorcycles, power sports products, and I'm just going to walk you through the common things that you're likely to find. So but do check your battery first, obviously. So check the voltage on it. It should be over 12.4, and if you hold the meter to it, and when you press the starter and have the meter to it, it shouldn't drop much less than 11.9 or 12. I mean, if it goes down to like 10 or 10.2 or something, then it's probably on its way out. You got a bit of a dead cell going on there in your battery. So first thing to check is your battery. Anyways, check it out. It'll probably help you out. There's 3 common reasons why your motorcycle won't turn over, and one, the most painfully obvious, is that your battery's dead. And it's not always dead to the point where your lights won't come on. It's just that it doesn't have enough amperage left in it to turn over the starter motor. So a lot of people are maybe confused by that. They think that a dead battery means just that. It's completely obliterated and no lights or nothing. But that's not really the case. The battery can have plenty of juice to run the lights, but not enough to run the high amperage it needs to turn over the starter. So that's the first thing. Check your battery. I thought I'd mention it. The second thing is that your starter solenoid has given up the ghost. It's an electromagnetic affair, and when you hit the button, it's like a relay, and it crosses the higher amperage circuit with the lower amperage circuit, because you couldn't run the kind of amperage through your piddly little switch, otherwise it would go up in smoke fairly readily. So they run it through a solenoid, and the solenoid gives up the ghost. And the third thing is that if your starter's not working anymore, but it's making a spinning sound, it's probably your starter clutch. The Japanese motorcycles have kind of set the standard since the early 70s on how a starter motor is rigged up on an engine. Throughout the power sports industry, with ATVs, even side-by-sides, motorcycles. There's exceptions in the motorcycle world still that use Bendix starters, to like an automotive style starter, but it's mostly relegated to Harley Davidson, maybe Moto Guzzi, I think, BMW motorcycles. Lion's share of formats for starters is with a sprang clutch, it's called, and they tend to be fairly reliable, and the reason they do that is for compact weight savings, and so that it reduces the amount of parts. It's cheaper to manufacture, maybe less metal, I don't know. Anyways, that's just the way it's been for a long time. But they do fail eventually, and they do need to be looked at. So if you have a starter that's, when you hit the button and nothing happens except a whirring sound, then probably your starter clutch is gone. If you hit the starter button and it's a clicking sound, it's probably your starter solenoid is either dead or your battery doesn't have enough oomph to turn it over. So follow with me, and we'll go through the starter clutch on this old Kawasaki. It's a good example as any. They're all mostly the same. They got 3 large balls that spin out, and they grab onto a shaft in there, and it only turns one way. And when the speed of the motor overcomes the speed of the starter motor, then it's allowed to freewheel, and that's why they do it. So follow along and see what you think. So it's the starter clutch is usually found in behind the stator on most motorcycles, or it's mounted on the side, and you'll see the starter back there, and then it kind of goes into the case and through the case and into the stator. And so behind the stator, the permanent magnet for the stator is your starter clutch. That's just the cover there, and then you have the starter clutch in behind here. This is kind of a weird one because it's got a chain that goes around it. Usually it's gears. You'll find a little shaft and there's a gear, and then there's a what do you call it, a freewheeling gear or a intermediary gear, a joining gear, whatever you want to call it. There goes a gear and then a gear and then it joins that. So, but this is kind of old school, and they decided to put a chain in there, which is all right too. But when you go to turn this thing, all it does is spin. And it doesn't turn the crankshaft anymore. So, this is my flywheel puller, KZ750B flywheel. It's an old axle out of a, not sure what it's out of, old bike. There we go, came off pretty slick. It's kind of a surprise what I'll find in here. This is an old motor I had kicking around, donor motor out of, I don't know, something or another, but KZ750. Anyways, if you're having problems getting these number 3 Phillips out, get yourself one of these impacts and a big hammer, and you just put it into the number 3 and give it a pop, and it loosens off. Just like that. The old rotor. If you turn it over, see there's 3 bolts here. Check to see if they're loose. What happens is this gear, this surface fits into the bearing and turns one way but not the other. The problem is that once you put the chain on here and put the starter to it, it's slipping because this surface is all screwed. I don't know if you can see it, but it's all chewed up. I mean, the interference here is just so tight. You see there's little roller bearings. You can see them there. And they're mounted on springs. You see these springs just go down, and they're kind of resistant to come back up. And I can feel a flat spot on one side of them, so they're done. You can see the wear in the bearing that was in there, or the bushing. You can see the wear on the one side. So this thing's been rocking sideways for whatever reason. So you can see why I'm replacing this one. See, there's a crack in it, and that happens to them. The old ones crack, and the new ones, you know. I don't know what this is made of. Some kind of alloy with some kind of copper alloy of some description, and then the newer one's more like a hardened steel. So might last, might not. Loctite these bolts, red Loctite these. And these bolts come loose. That's the other reason why these things slip. And then if you see, this is the old one. The surface is all marred up. And then you can see on the relevant bearings too, it's been chattering. And that's probably because it's, you know, because of that crack in there. So anyways, that's toast. If you're having problems with your starter clutch, it's not a good sign when you find all this stuff in here. You should never use this much silicone because it gets, see how it's all on the inside, and the oil galleys on motorcycles are so small that they'll actually clog your oil passageways in your motor. So be very sparingly, use this very sparingly in your engine. I mean, it's okay to use, and maybe use a better brand. Like use this Permatex Ultra Black. This is what I like to use. Make sure the surface is clean, oil free, and just a light film. That's all you need. The machining is so good on Japanese bikes, really, that, you know, if you clean both surfaces and then put this on lightly, it'll probably not leak whatsoever. So yeah, that's what I use, Ultra Black. And there you go. This should work. Key on. There. Hit the starter. That's better. I'm going to replace the clutch cable anyway. It's too short. I don't know what's up with this one. And I found these on eBay. So I found an old stock Motion Pro cable, fairly cheap, for the old KZ750B. It's part number 030023, made in Taiwan. So, and then I bought this other one while I was waiting from Niche Power Sports or something, Chinese cable. It's a reasonable facsimile, so I'll have a spare cable. Maybe not a good cable, but a spare cable. Because, you know, these old bikes are getting hard to find parts for, right? So, interestingly enough, there's two different types of stators on these old 750s. There's the one commonly found on most motorcycles now, where it's just like a permanent magnet, and then there's a stator. And oddly enough, this is a two-phase stator. Most of them are three-phase, and this is the old one that came off this old bike over here. It's kind of interesting because these are one of the most reliable charging systems. See, it has this funny core here, and then it has an outer core, and what it is the ring here is charged up with 12 volts, and then it becomes magnetized, and it becomes magnetized as electricity is needed, and then it becomes a stator and a magnet, and it inducts a current into the outer ring, because you can see three wires coming out of here, and it goes up to a regular rectifier unit, which is under there. These were the least problematic in my experience, the electromagnetic stators. There was some of these stators that were on the old bikes, like the old CB750s, and they had electromagnetic stators. The old 750K models, CB750K, and the old CB750F models, like later up to about 82, and then beyond. And then Suzuki had some just regular alternator style stators as well, and they worked really good. Stators have been such a pain in the ass in the power sports industry. I don't know if they deliberately make them fallible, but they're a real piece of garbage. I mean, there's just nothing but problems with them. If you're going a long trip, one of the things to do is where the connectors meet on the stators, cut them off and solder them together, because it'll overheat and it'll give you nothing but grief. What a lot of people don't realize is there's about 110 volts AC that comes out of these stators, AC current, and so it's just like what comes out of your wall, except for low amperage, and then it gets converted to DC, and then it gets chopped down to a usable 12.5 to 14.2 or something volts on the battery. So the regular stators with the permanent magnet, they have to always shunt off the excess electricity, and it has to go somewhere. And the problem with the stator and the permanent magnet is it never shuts off. I mean, as it's spinning, it's always inducing current, and the current has to go somewhere, and it gets shunted off into the frame. And that's why if you got a bad ground on your frame and you got a voltage of 15.2 or 17 or 18 or something crazy, and your regular rectifier is starting to smoke, it's probably a bad ground. It has to go somewhere. The old electromagnetic style stators, they never really overheat because they're always going back and forth. Like there's a regulator unit on this that you can adjust, by the way, with little points, so they're quite reliable. And then on these old ones, there's a rectifier, so it rectifies the current, and then it regulates it, and so it actually shuts off the voltage to the magnet, and it becomes not a magnet, and therefore it doesn't generate any electricity when there's no need for extra voltage when the battery's reached its charging capacity, you see. So these old style systems were really good on motorcycles. But these old style electromagnetic stators were really pretty reliable from my experience. The only exception I can really say is the later CB750, CB900, CB1100s. Hondas, they had like brushes, carbon brushes and the carbon brushes would wear out and they wouldn't make good contact, and then the CBX 1100, by the way, that's a really coveted bike right now. They were kind of a piece of garbage, to be honest. I remember them from back in the day. I've ridden lots of them. They weren't that great handling. The KZ 1300 was a much better handling bike. But anyways, I'm rambling. So these starter clutches, anyways, the thing with them is that if with the old bikes, if you run the modern oils, it doesn't clean as well as the old oils that these old motors were designed to have in them, and so the deposits build up. What I like to run in my own bikes, I run diesel 1540 in the old air-cooled bikes, and it's a high detergent oil, generally diesel, like mineral, not synthetic, but mineral-based diesel, and it seems to work really good. I've had the problem is that you get it into, like, say, Goldwings and old XJ750 Yamahas, and they got the starter clutch right inside the motor, so you got to take out the engine, split the cases to get at the stupid starter clutch, and the parts probably aren't available. The best advice I could give to anybody is to dump your oil and put diesel oil in it, non-synthetic, 1540, and just run it for 2,000 k, get it started. And and I've done this before, you probably find the problem goes away, because what happens is the deposits get in those Sprague clutches, the one-way clutches that are critical for the starter motor to work properly, and it jams the bearings open, and then it doesn't work right. And so what the detergent oil does, it kind of cleans, and then your oil filter is supposed to catch it. That's in theory. So anyways, give that a try before you start ripping your old Goldwing apart, or your beloved old motorcycle. So, hope that helps a bit, because I think this knowledge is getting lost. It's just like people just, it's hard to find anybody to work on your motorcycle, period. I mean like really work on it. I don't mean just like put air in the tires and change your oil and stuff. Like seriously understand what's going on, work on it. So there's still some guys out there, but they're kind of a dying breed for sure. So I hope these videos help, and I'll put them out there. And if you're getting into old bikes, or you're trying to fix up a project or something, and you want to know, how to do it right, then that might be, helpful for you. So anyways, that's my explanation. Electromagnetic stators and permanent magnet stators. The electromagnetic ones are generally far more reliable than the permanent magnets. And the permanent magnet stators are in so many products, from quads to even the I think the Polaris Rangers and things like this. I think they use permanent magnet stators, and they're such a piece of junk, I mean, in my opinion. So if you're going a long trip, maybe my good advice to you would be carry a spare one, or suss out because you can rewind the stators, by the way, but the problem is getting the lamination proper so that withstands the heat, because you have to isolate the wires from the motor oil, because it runs in an oil bath. And so the moment that insulation breaks down, not only is it not good for your motor to have the insulation circulating around, hopefully your sump filter or your oil filter catches it, but also it shorts out in the oil, because your oil is full of metallic particles, of course. So it's kind of conductive oil. I mean, it's not super conductive, but it's conductive enough that it's it doesn't bode well for your stator. So it's like a snowball effect. As soon as that crust starts breaking off. So if you can find some way to, rewinding them really isn't the problem. You just have to find the right gauge copper wire, rewind them, a 3-phase stator, and then. But the problem is getting the proper coating on it. It's always been a bit of an issue. Some places are better than others for getting this kind of thing done. Up here in Canada, it's next to impossible. I mean, God, nobody fixes anything anymore, it seems. So, anyways, hope that helps. I'm rambling. So, if you like the video, like and subscribe. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think about these old bikes and the videos and the stators. So, anyways, take care. Thanks. Bye-bye.